Hey folks, I was just going to talk a little bit this morning about the nature of reality, how we create and how we co-create together, and hopefully this is going to contain some good epiphanies for some people out there, because it's really quite a revelation when we realize that the way we've been kept from knowing that we create our own reality is literally by having the thought in our head that we don't. It's like sometimes people even, they can believe it up to a certain point, and then they go, but come on, they have that limitation, right? That limiting thought of, but if I'm creating all this, why would I create these negative situations for myself? I'm just a pawn, I'm just like a leaf blowing in the wind through life, at the whims of the collective. And in a sense, that's true. This is a complex, deep subject in a way. That's what I was talking about. It's multi-layered. It's, as above, so below, as within, so without, right? So, yeah, it's kind of a deep one. Let's see, where was I going with that? Well, so, so at the same time as our emotions, I touched on that in one of my early videos. Our emotions, our heart connected to our crown and upper chakras, right, is what we create our reality through. Now, as we've said also before, you can also create a negative reality with your negative emotions, with your feelings of self-doubt. And these are seated in our subconscious, like when we're children, basically when our subconscious is wide open and absorbing like a sponge. We saw certain people, in our collective humanity, the elders in our world that we perceived, behaving certain ways. That causes us to make certain decisions about the nature of our reality. So we really are all supporting this together. Now, here's the thing. As I said in yesterday's video, sometimes what we're creating in the 3D is at odds with what our fellow is creating, I mean, that's almost literally the as above of all the conflict in the world in a way, because you know, sometimes all right. So what I'd be saying with that is, on an individual level, if what you're creating is out of alignment with the accepted human conscious collective that we're all upholding at this time, it's going to be more like your opinion, it'll be your reality, as long as you're not working with other people around you that disagree with that. They're like, that's not the way it is for me, you know, like like your tastes, for instance. It is a fact that I don't like a certain food because of the way it tastes. And it is a fact that to somebody else that food is great because of the way it tastes, right? So we're both experiencing one reality, but our emotions towards it create how we receive that reality, okay? It's funny, I didn't want to start off talking about that. What I first had in my head this morning was the relationship between divine masculine and divine feminine, and how we create and how we co-create. Now, the first thing that we have to say here is it's like, people get on their twin flame kicks and their soulmate kicks and these different things. The thing is, you have divine masculine and divine feminine within yourself too. The reality is, you won't even draw a person that's on that vibrational level into your life until you start honoring the divine feminine within your own self. We'll get more into this subject later on in other videos, but that's basically how we got to this feeling of separation from our creator, how we got to this feeling of separation from source, was by turning our backs on our feminine aspects and leaning largely towards the patriarchal aspects, okay? So, like I said, those energies are within both of us. Kind of what I was talking about yesterday. So, as I had stated, what I experienced was basically source turned itself inside out, created the first divine feminine womb space for everything to be birthed from, basically, right? So, it stands that within ourselves, if you're male energy, male bodied this lifetime, we can, experience the divine but not without having balance with our divine feminine energy. It has to start there. You have to get in touch with your emotions and with your feelings and really know your whole self, you know? So you have to honor your feminine aspects within yourself. Start cultivating feelings of love and, respect towards that. I mean, that is how we heal our inner child. And our inner child is where we have our limitations that hold us back from knowing that we create this reality all the time. We are like fighting ourselves. We won't surrender to our subconscious and realize the power and the gifts that it has. And that's the same way as within, so without, It's like, guys out there, we need to bring our respect towards feminine energy back into balance, basically, within ourselves and without of ourselves. This is how we know the divine, through our male selves. Think about it, just in the most literal sense. The female body is designed to bring a soul in, into that womb for that baby, right? So the divine feminine is already connected to source in a most literal way, So we can come to know that aspect of ourselves through honoring the divine feminine. We have to approach with a humble heart, and a respectful heart. And this is the way we need to approach the divine feminine outside of ourselves as well. I just wanted to share this funny example about it because, and there's a lot more to it, but the Disney movie Moana, it's funny. I wouldn't think that they would put a lot of truth in a Disney movie, but I mean, then again, it could be written off as a cartoon if anybody tried to say, hey, this actually applies to our human, situation we're in right now as a collective. Kind of going back and forth real quick here just a little bit, because like I said, it's a really deep subject. But yeah, in the movie Moana, they give you the example of Maui, right? And at the beginning of the movie, he's introduced as like a villainous character, a demigod who's, kind of treacherous, right? He's self-serving, as it were. Malevolent even. They kind of portray him as at the beginning of the movie. And yeah, you find out that he wanted to steal the ability to create for himself from the goddess, right? So he does. He steals the heart of Te Fiti, and disaster ensues because now he's only creating from a male-oriented perspective. And, the overall broad view of the movie, he's got to return. See, I consider that an example or, a metaphor for the divine masculine has to return when he's taken from the divine feminine. There's been endless years of subjugation going on this planet, so it's going to take a while for us to break free of all that, right? But in the end, you find out that the divine feminine basically has become a demon because of what has gone on, right? But then you find out further, of course, why did Maui do it in the first place? Because of his hurt inner child. Because of his hurt inner child, he was acting out through his male energy and trying to control his world, basically, instead of surrendering to it, which is our divine feminine aspect, right? You'll see it if you know anything about magic or spell work or anything. You'll see the same thing. But I mean, it's just very psychological. Just because it's old world and we use terms like magic doesn't mean it wasn't science. The divine masculine has to impress upon the divine feminine, and that means the divine feminine has to be open to receive. That's why we have to approach with honor. When you're just a kid, your subconscious, your yin, your divine feminine is wide open and just takes everything in, right? But that's only a stage in our life. At this point, for us to change that programming that's operating on the subconscious level, we've got to be able to communicate with our subconscious, right? We've got to get it to be able to receive the information we're trying to get to it, and it speaks in symbols, okay? That's why the occult is the way it is. And without us knowing that, we can't shift what we're creating for our conscious collective. It's being manipulated, We do all create this reality. We create what they want us to create when we plug into all their programming and let us keep feeding us, okay? That is the thing we all need to be aware of. just I mean, it's very interesting. There's so much to this, and it's always going deeper for me. The example I used to use is like when we transitioned from listening to the church more over to more scientific method. You know, it's like there are some of us that are becoming aware of these shifts that are going on ahead of the conscious collective just a little bit. And it really is a blessing. It's for us to share what we know so that people can have some comfort when these things just start popping off and you start feeling changes in you, in the way you view your world, the way you treat this that we live in, right? I mean, those people that made the transition back then away from church more towards scientific method, they were very persecuted at first. They were treated as if they were crazy, right? And of course, that is what the government would want you to think. That's why I said there's so much more to this. If we look back, the church used to be the government, basically. That's why we had to have a separation of church and state later. But I guess that's not really just the overall subject of this video. The overall subject of this video is guys out there and all of us, we need to start revering the divine feminine again. That is what we have come away from. We all know and feel this urge to heal, to hold space for each other, to express our best. A little bit on 5D interaction there. That's what I was kind of talking about yesterday, is each of us has strengths and gifts to offer the world. And when we're under these cultural paradigms in which we just want to put on a face for the public and we hold back our truth, we are not expressing our best, There's so many ways in which we limit our own abundance and hold on to blockages, emotional blockages from our inner child. That's why I sent that energy yesterday for you all. If you didn't watch it, hopefully you can watch it and receive that, and, start this process of healing your inner child. Let's start taking back our reality and choosing what we want to create, knowing that we can do that. It's not an easy thing. It feels very real, the concrete limitations of this reality, when we say you just need to believe, need to believe that you can receive, believe that you can follow your heart space and do what you love. When you're doing what you love, you're doing it with love, and people are going to feel that with whatever it is you choose to produce. Okay? Yeah, we just need to start allowing people to not feel any shame towards their authentic expression. That's a lot of what we see in our culture. That's how they control us. They're like, tell you, through so many avenues of media, what is acceptable and what is not, what we should feel ashamed of for having felt, all that kind of shit, It's just gotta stop. I hope this was helpful for anybody. More later, guys.